All right, so we're going to continue looking at ways to keep their hands occupied or keep them in bad positions when they're in turtle. That's one of the big things about knife defense in general is if his hands have the opportunity and the freedom, they feel free to be able to do stabby things, then he'll be able to do stabby things. If I can occupy them psychologically and physically by either forcing him to make posts on the ground or basing in certain ways, or simply give him making feel like he has to go somewhere else, then I'm occupying his hands, I'm giving him a different job for that moment in time. They're not in a mood or in a place to actually stab me. So Mike broke down the concept of spiraling, spreading people out from turtle. We're gonna look at an even more basic concept that can work really well in scrambles, can work really well as I'm moving across the body, and in general, will take away a lot of his ability to do much with this, right? So for him to be able to effectively use this knife, let's say he has the knife in his right hand, no matter what side of the body I'm on, he needs to be able to support his own weight with the other three posts and then engage and create some type of force towards me. So if I was on this side of his body, for him to stab me, he's got to completely change where he's at to be able to do any type of an effective stabbing. So if Mike wanted to stab me right now, he's got to get his weight up, he's got to shift and go in. Notice that weight came off of that hand. Even in this case, weight even came off of this hand. Even if I was like directly out in front of him, right? And I'm out here and we're going to fight. If he wants to effectively stab me, he's got to be able to get weight off of that hand, which means he's got to be able to disperse weight into other areas. Okay, so if I understand this concept where I can keep his hands on the floor and make it more difficult or less desirable for him to want to lift his hands up super quickly, that can be very helpful, especially in the midst of different areas and stuff like that. So we're going to talk about a dog collar. The dog collar is my hand goes right to the back of his head, right to the back of his neck, and I'm literally jamming his face into the floor. So if I can get to the position where I'm jamming his face into the floor, it's very difficult for him to get into a position of power to pull that knife up off the ground. Now, for training purposes, we're going to work on simply keeping pressure on the hands and the shoulders to keep his hands occupied. In real life, I'm going to be looking to collect with 2-on-1s in different positions and spirals. This is one piece of the puzzle as it goes. But the drill that we're going to work on is going to be really simple. Mike is going to be coming and trying to just like loosely slash at me, make stabs at me, things like that. And with pressure on hands and shoulders, I'm going to make that very difficult for him to do. Right? So all I'm doing is tracking with my hand, pushing his face down into the floor, checking the hands and shoulders, and pushing him into that spot. Okay? I'm using this concept of taking away his eyesight, right? Because if he's flat down into the ground, he really can't see too much going on. So he may not be able to see exactly where I'm at. That takes away some pressure. His ability with his head down to go into any type of effective extension and be able to put power behind any stabbing becomes significantly worse. And as you notice, the more I'm shoving his head down, the more he has to create bigger movements to then get into positions where he may be able to do stuff. And remember, if we can create bigger energy and stay in contact, we can usually take advantage of bigger energy. So again, basic concept. I'm keeping weight on his hands and his shoulders to make him have to support the weight, make it harder for him to get his hands up off the ground. Preferably, I'm making him eat dirt, all right? Taking my hand, palm, right to the back of the neck, and I'm leaning into it. Okay, I have enough of a base. I'm finding that middle ground where I can lift or I can shift my weight into the back of his head while I also still have mobility and control from here. And the drill to get used to this, like I said, is that he's just going to be lightly slashing at me, and I'm changing positions with the hands and the shoulders, making it a little bit more difficult for him to do that simply by smothering his head down into the ground. Okay? So that's your dog collar drill for today. Spend a little bit extra time warming your necks up, and we'll see you guys for the next lesson.